New York Times bestselling author and psychiatrist Dan Siegel talks about the nuances of the reward center of the adolescent brain and how that relates to teens' risk taking. Here's Dan.
Now, one of the ways that this brain is changing, in addition to the pruning down and the myelinization that creates a more integrated brain, is that the brain also is changing what's called the reward circuitry. These are a set of networks, really, that go from the top of the brain to the middle of the brain to the lower parts of the brain, and they determine what feels like it was satisfying, what feels like it was rewarding when we do it. Now, what we're beginning to understand about the teen brain is that these reward circuits, which are based on a neurotransmitter, the chemical that allows the neurons to communicate with each other, to actually have an increase in the dopamine, the neurotransmitter that is being used to allow them to connect with each other. This increased release level is also accompanied in some studies by a lower baseline level. And what that means is that at rest, we may, as teenagers, feel more utsy or bored, and we need something to stimulate the reward system. And one of those things is novelty, trying something new, which for a teen can sometimes mean something that's dangerous. Now, what happens is you get an increase in the dopamine that's released. And so your brain says, oh, that felt really good when I was doing this fast driving, or, as you probably are aware, anything of addiction is associated with dopamine. So the use of substances that release dopamine, like alcohol or heroin or cocaine, is greatly increased as are behaviors that can be associated with release of dopamine. And so the reason we see addiction most likely to have its first onset during the teen years is because of this finding. Now, all of that means that being more informed during adolescence about how the brain works, both in the remodeling of the brain that you can influence and in understanding how this shift in the dopamine circuitry combined with what's called hyper-rational thinking, which is basically where the brain of a teen says, what's the exciting aspect of a choice? Like going fast at 100 miles an hour in a car would be so exciting. Oh my gosh, there's a 30% chance, I might get injured or someone might get hurt. Well, 70% is greater than 30%. So in a hyper-rational way, I say it's most likely to be fine. And I drive that fast. That's why it's called hyper-rational thinking. When you combine hyper-rational thinking, where you only think about the exciting aspects of a choice, and combine that with this change in the dopamine levels in the reward circuits, you can see why for some adolescents, doing risky things is actually very likely to occur and can incur damage to the individual and even to those around them.
Thank you for watching this video. We publish new videos every week, so if you enjoy this sort of content, please like and subscribe to the channel.